Hello, this is Emily with Pixel Breakdown, and today I have Michael from Moonside Studios here to talk to us about Scuttle Up. Do you want to give a brief introduction?
Sure. Thanks, Emily. I appreciate it. Yeah, again, I am Michael. I also go by Clawstorm in most online circles, and I am the independent solo developer of Scuttle Up, which just released last week.
Nice. So it is an interesting game, Scuttle Up. Can you give me just a brief summary about it? Like what kind of game it is?
Sure. So it is a really simple game for a somewhat niche audience, right? Scuttle Up is a rage bait climber game called a Faudian. Do you know what Faudians are? Have you ever played any Faudians?
I've
Like,
never heard the term Fadian, but if it's like getting over it and
pretty
that sort of
much, yeah,
thing.
yeah. So
Yeah.
getting over it with Bennett Foddy. So
Hmm.
he kind of coined the genre with that type of game, and basically, a Fodian is a hyper difficult game with zero checkpoints, right? So like only up, quap, getting over it, a difficult game about climbing, things like that. So Scuttle Up is a hyper difficult game with no checkpoints where you play as a crab trying to escape his 9 to 5 job to ascend the top of this course for the prize at the top. It's very hard. It is exceptionally hard, but the most difficult things in life are often rewarding. So hopefully, some people get some feeling of reward out of a game like that.
I think they do. I was looking at your Steam page and I see like a lot of positive feedback. That was basically saying what you just said. Like it's very difficult but very rewarding when you finish
Mhm.
it, essentially. Um Before we jump into like the game, I am curious like how did Moonside Studios come to be?
Yeah, so I kind of made Moonside Studios out of spite, which I know is a weird way to start a game studio. I had started playing around in Unreal Engine a few years ago, trying to like modify Rocket League maps or make scenes, and I didn't get anywhere with it. And to make a boring story short, the us gamers were promised a game by a studio called Fantastic Studios, and they were making a game called The Day Before, and it was supposed to be a zombie MMO. And as a guy that loves MMOs, I'm like, this is going to be amazing. This checks all my boxes. I cannot wait for this to come out. We all waited for 4 years for this game to come out, and it finally did. And it bombed on launch, just absolutely bombed. It wasn't the game we were promised. It was out for like 3 days before they refunded everybody on Steam, right?
Oh.
This was a really popular game. It was the most wishlisted game on Steam, like ever, right? And after it bombed, I was sitting there like, just thinking to myself, I still want this game, right? Fine, I'll do it myself, right? And so I re-downloaded Unreal Engine, and I wasn't so delusional to think I'm going to make an MMO on my own. No, that was never the thought. But I said the least I'll do is prototype it, right? I'll build a prototype. We'll show that it's plausible. Show the characteristics of the game, and then once we get a good prototype, we'll make the full game. Get funding and make the full game. So I started making the prototype, spent a couple months on that. And then I realized this whole making games thing is like really hard, like really, really hard. And I said, I need experience first. I can't take on this project first. I need to get a game under my belt. And so I started Moonside Studios and started the project Scuttle Up. The name Moonside comes twofold. I suffer from really bad insomnia. I have like an inverted circadian rhythm, just meaning that my body likes to be awake at night and asleep during the day. And obviously, in corporate circles, that is not a good thing.
Mhm.
So I kind of came to the conclusion that if I'm ever going to be like happy and healthy, I need to be able to set my own hours. So all right, let's start a game studio, and when I call my own shots, I'll work all night, right? And my the first game I ever fell in love with was a game called Earthbound, released on the SNES. To age myself a little bit, my favorite level in that game was a level called Moonside. It's this really inverted, surreal level that just really took me by surprise. So all the moons aligned on that one. I'm like, yeah, that's a great name for a studio.
It is a great name for a studio. And I think your story of, I guess, vengeance or wanting to make your own game. I think it's a great story, whatever gets you interested in like creating games. I mean, you played a lot of games, like you were streaming for a while, right? So
Mhm.
it is interesting, you know, seeing a someone who like is very invested in games then switch over to like making games.
Yeah, it's a very interesting scene when it comes to streaming and making games, right? Because I started streaming post COVID, like 9 million other people did, and I had a lot of I enjoyed mild success out of it. I did it for full time for a little while, and then went back into the workforce and yada yada. But when I started making games, I said, okay, people have to be doing this, right? And for sure, they are. There's a whole category on Twitch called the software and game development category, where you can go and watch people make games, make friends with other people that are making games, see how they're doing it, see how they're using the engine that you're using, things like that. And it adds a whole new layer of not only just community, but interesting dynamics with how you learn how other people make games, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in sort of doing kind of like case studies against, what people have done that has worked and what people have done that hasn't worked. So watching people make games and seeing how other games are made played a huge part in that.
Yeah, I think that's a great outlook for just anything or a way to approach anything you do is like it seems really basic, but just taking a note of like the things that other people do that you see like that you don't like, and then things that you do like, and then trying to do your own thing from there. I think it's great. I've seen people rage at games, and I'm like, it try making one then, like you can make that game that you envision in your head. Um, and with today's like the internet and stuff, it's just very easy for anyone to get started. Um, yeah. Now switching back over to Scuttle Up, it's a very interesting story and I guess main character. So like a depressed corporate crab, office crab. It's an interesting choice. So how did this idea come to be?
When you say it like that, it sounds sillier than it is, if that's even possible. Yeah, the depressed corporate crab. So when I started streaming, I got the name Clawstorm, or came up with the name Clawstorm from a derivative of usernames, but I kind of got niched into this crab corner hilariously, right? And it has to do with the way I hold a controller. I hold it with claw grip, and then 15 usernames later, it ended up being Clawstorm, and I stuck with that. So my community has always been about crabs. And I decided, okay, I can't make my dream game. What kind of game am I going to make? I got to make something simple, right? It's got to be easy to design, but compelling enough to where people might still be interested in it. And it can't be oversaturated. It can't be done like a million times. So you'd be surprised when we're talking about like how people don't do case studies for what's worked or what hasn't worked. You and I are both on the indie dev subreddits. If I see one more PS1 style horror game, Metroidvania, multiplayer survival game, I mean, I can keep naming them. I see the same ones over and over again, right? So I had to pick something that would be simple, but I could kind of emulate my own life into, kind of art imitates life, tell some lessons and some stories subconsciously that I'd be into. So I wonder where me, the guy making this game part-time next to a job that he absolutely hated, got the inspiration for a crab escaping his corporate 9 to 5. Let's just say art imitates life, I guess.
I mean, it's something that we can all relate to. And then you get to the crab and you're like, well, that throws a little wrench in it. But I think it's
Yeah,
hilarious.
that's our
Yeah.
own little touch. And if I could have just made it a person, just like every other game. But there aren't very many games where you get to play as a crab, and it just kind of adds
Right.
this almost sense of ridiculousness. You'll see that the theme for Scuttle Up is seriously unserious. And I established that very early on. Like, what do I want the theme of the game to be? It has to be seriously unserious. So, like, it's a game that doesn't take itself too seriously, but the design of it, the mechanics of it, the themes behind the subconscious levels and the art and the environments, like let's take that very seriously.
Yeah, I think that that's great. Yeah, and it is funny seeing the crab like grab stuff in the game, but the physics, I guess, works well. It does seem like you took what needs to be taken seriously serious, because if you didn't, then there would definitely be people complaining about that. And I haven't seen any like bad reviews so far, so
Still waiting on that first one. And I thought it was going to come first day, like the second review in was going to be a bad review. No, surprisingly not. It was pretty smooth. One of my favorite reviews was this game was made by Satan, and Satan has claws. 10 out of 10 would recommend. So what? Okay, I guess that's the
great.
nature of it. But yeah, on the mechanics of it, when I first started the project, I didn't start it very seriously. I was like, okay, I'm going to make like an itch.io game, and it's going to take a month to make. And let me just see what I can do. And I started to bring in the crab model and bring in the physics. And the first thing I did after I made the base level that I can interact in and got the crab model working was I need to establish mechanically how this crab's going to move, how it can jump, how far it can jump, and then not touch that for the rest of my game profile. Because games, when you're making them, if you turn one knob in the game, like how fast a character can walk or how high they can jump, 17 other knobs in your game are going to turn. You're not going to know which ones they are, right? So when you get that fundamental mechanic, like whatever your game is built upon, that foundation, you want it to stay solid. So I spent a few weeks just picking out how fast I wanted the character to move, if I wanted them to be able to sprint, if I wanted to jump or double jump, if there were anything that was going to change those mechanics in the game. So the version of the crab that you're playing on, with the exception of some animation and audio differences, is the version that was started over a year ago in the original project file, original save.
Nice. Yeah, it's good to solidify that, like the foundational stuff of the game early on. And that does, I mean, there's times where I've heard people adding stuff in games where it's like, yeah, okay, it makes sense that you added that, but it would have been nice had you thought that out before, because now you have to go back and retest and make sure everything that's already done fits with this whole new like component that you're adding in.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And I make the joke all the time because I have a listed hours in Steam playtest hours. I have thousands of hours in my own game, so much so to where I'm tired of it, because I have tested every jump, like every distance that you could make, every single platform that has been put down, every mesh you see has been tested and tested and tested. So if I were to go in right now and like lose my jump speed or mechanics, the game would be toast. Luckily, I have all that information backed up, but essentially it'd be toast if something changed.
I mean, yeah, because with this kind of game in particular, where the goal is to be extra difficult, it's like a fine line between, yes, this is difficult, or like, no, this is just badly, like not set up well, that sort of thing. Yeah. So it takes a lot more testing, I'm sure, to make sure you meet that metric.
That was a very difficult line to, no pun intended, it was a very difficult line to draw, right? Because when it comes to rage games and Fodians, you're 100% right. There's a difference between a game that is inherently difficult and there's a different and a game that is just like poorly built, right?
Right.
And the market has shown us that games that are well built but inherently difficult work fine in big audiences. See Elden Ring. And all FromSoft games and Dark Souls games, they're beloved games and they're so well built and they're so hard.
Yeah.
Right? So well built, though, that there's an entire genre of games built around their fundamental design ideas. So when I was building the game, I had a choice of like, do I want to make the physics hard or do I want to try and make the levels hard? Right. Typically in these Fodians, a lot of them are foundationally built on the idea that the controls are janky, right? I didn't want to do that. I wanted to make the controls tight, but make the courses that you have to go through inherently difficult. And from the feedback that I've gotten so far, I believe I did that to an extent. But the more people that play it, I'm sure I'll find somebody that says the controls are janky or the crab too small, or somebody will always find something to
Right.
complain.
So it is described as a like punishing platformer. And you kind of touched on sort of what makes your movement system unique compared to other rage likes, because you did focus on instead making the levels difficult, right? Versus like the I guess movement system. Is that, can you describe sort of like what else makes it unique about that?
Yeah. So that it's an inherent part of the design, but when I started designing the game, I thought that was going to be easy. So I designed a couple levels and started playtesting. By the way, if you're an indie game dev and you're watching this, I'm talking to you right there. Playtest early. Playtest early. It is very important, and this is the reason why. So I started playtesting early. When you are making a game, you have zero perspective into what that game is going to look like to your end user, right? You think but you don't. So I brought in playtesters and I built a route. It's a simple route. The only way you can go is up. I bring in playtesters and they get lost. I'm thinking in my head, how are you getting lost? The only direction you can go is up. You will be amazed how many people just won't look like where you want them to look without being cued somehow. And that's how I got into level design. And I fell in love with level design. I will tell you right now, I am your favorite game dev's least favorite game dev. If they go back and watch any of my streams of me making this game, they're going to say this was a nightmare. He didn't code a single line of code. I did it all in blueprints. My blueprints are spaghetti code, right?
Everyone's is.
Yeah. I used a lot of tools to make the game and pre-made tools and plugins and things like that. But I really fell in love with level design. So I'm, best comes to best. If I get into the industry or we start another project, my main focus will be level design. Because I became fascinated with, okay, how do designers get these playtesters to look where you want them to look, right? And it's done through an idea called spatial communication, right? So you can use meshes and things inside of your design to kind of subconsciously steer the user in the direction that they need to go. You'll be amazed if anybody plays through Scuttle Up and you try and look for it, how many things are subconsciously shaped like arrows. That will ruin your playthrough because you're like, that's an arrow right there. That's an arrow right there. I can tell that's put right there to make me think I can jump up there. It'll change your whole playthrough, right? So when I was playtesting the game, people wouldn't look where I needed them to look. I'm like, oh, this is a whole new level of difficulty. Not only am I making the game hard to traverse, but I also have to, in order for people to even get there, I have to lead them there, right? So that's that push and pull of, yes, you're being led to where to go. Now, when you get there, the difficulty starts. And that was a constant battle. So playtest early, because I think in the first few playtests, most people that were friends of mine would playtest for 20 to 40 minutes and then give up. And then I redesigned the space. I led their eyes. I used spatial communication. And then they're getting to the middle. They're getting to other stopping areas before they give up. So.
Yeah, I think that's also something now I'm going to look out for just in general. Like, oh, the designers they want me to look this way. Because it is a lot of like subconsciously. But yeah, I agree. I think playtesting is like one of the most important things. And it is something that like indie developers often overlook because we're so like struggling to find time to do most things already. But yeah, it is 100%, like you were saying, like very valuable. Can you tell me more about like the grab and throw mechanic I was seeing? Yeah, like how does it tie into the core platforming experience?
For sure. So when I was playtesting the game, the original grab and throw mechanics didn't exist, right? Before we really got into it. And I would playtest it myself. And I said, this is great, but this is kind of like everything else. Like what's going to separate my game from the rest of the market, right? And that's a very important question to ask yourself when you're making a game is can this be replicated? Does this exist on Steam already? If yes, oh, but mine's just a little bit different. In this day and age of gaming and all these people that got into development post-COVID and the thousands of more games that are coming out on Steam, you want to be very different. I don't even think I hit that mark, but I tried a little bit.
Well, I mean, you play as a crab, so
yeah, I mean that helps.
Pretty
that
different.
Helps. Very few crab games on Steam, but yeah, the grab and throw mechanic was introduced with that idea in mind. So you place them only up, you can jump, you can vault, you can fall. Place them getting over it with Bennett Foddy, you can jump, you can vault, you can fall. Right, the same thing with all the Foddians. But I had this big island and all this stuff, and Unreal Engine does great with physics. So I'm like, okay, let's play around. So we drop some objects and I can kind of push into them. I'm like, okay, pushing them's cool. Let's hand the player a little bit more control, right? And so I developed the grab mechanic first. I was like, okay, this is fun. I'm putting pineapples on the map and I can grab them and, let go of them. So it says that's not quite enough. What about throwing them? We got to introduce throwing them, right? So now we can grab stuff and we can throw stuff. And I said, okay, let's manipulate the environment a little bit. One of the first things you do in the map is there's just a little glass bridge that you got to knock over somehow. You can grab it, you can throw it, you can try and jump around it. But it's one of the first things you have to do to kind of teach you, okay, you can manipulate this environment. And part of the reason why that's important to me, and it's a big mistake that indie games make, in my opinion, is you have to hand the player some sort of agency over your game, right? You have to give them some sort of thing where they feel like I can make changes on my own behalf. I'm not just following a path or following instructions. I can make some sort of creative decision to solve a puzzle in a way that somebody didn't expect me to. So that's where the grabbing and throwing came in. And then ultimately the 0G platforms and the explosive barrels. So those were introduced after people were saying, oh, I can't wait till speedrunners get a hold of this game. I said, well, speedrunners, when you watch them play other Foddians, they just do the path as fast as possible and maybe hit some glitches. What if they can make their own path, right? So that's when, okay, let's put these platformers in here and these barrels in here. I kind of tactfully placed them in places where I would put them. But to be totally honest, there are some that I just put there to see what would happen. I just put it there and I just can't wait until somebody takes that thing and moves it over here and figures out a way and goes farther. Because that's a very great feeling when you go to do something in a game and you say, can I do this? And then you do it. You say, oh, that's awesome. Yes. Like that's the number one feeling in a game. We kind of get our ego bruised in a game if we go to do something and then nothing happens, right? If you're in a game and you're like, oh, can I hit this? And you hit a wall and nothing happens, then like our egos are bruised. Like, oh, why did I think that? But if you hit the wall and a decal shows up and it dents the wall, you're like, oh yeah, something happened. If you hit the wall and it breaks and there's treasure behind it, now you're feeling great, right? Yeah. If you hit the wall and it breaks and there's treasure behind it, and then 2 hours later in your gameplay, the committee for wall safety shows up and remembers you hit that wall, now you're AAA Baldur's Gate territory, right? So it's all about registering that player agency and having consequences and rewards for it. So that was the idea carried into that. Simple in execution, but it's to give power back to the player.
Yeah, I think that you're adding a whole other component to like the Foddian genre, right? Because it is adding the player agency and their ability to do things differently. And this will be one that like I'm really interested to see speedrunners try and go through and see if they can maybe even find something you didn't even think of. I love watching like meme streams and like speedrun streams. So
yeah, we got to get this over to the big players to watch Ludwig rage at it, right? I just made the speedrun.com page today. So if people have a speedrun, check it out. I want to see how fast I can do it. They can submit them there. I speedran it. And I am at an 18-minute mark as of the making of this video, 18 minutes, 7 seconds. I don't expect to be the fastest, but people do joke with me. They say, oh, Claw finally made a game so he could finally be good at one. Remember, I have this small streaming community, and they clown on me all the time. Yeah, he finally made a game so he could finally be top at something.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that. But I'll probably be dethroned from that very soon. During playtesting and the beta testing, we kind of found that the average time to complete, if the person could complete it, is around 2 to 3 hours, right? For a full run. So, and the people that got really good at it can do it in like 50 minutes. So you're seeing the skill ladder is like wide.
Yeah.
Right? Most people don't beat it. No offense, everybody, but most people don't beat it. They can get up to about the halfway mark, which is about the hardest point, and then they fall, and then they got to come back to it later and try and get into that mark.
I want to see you get dethroned on your.
Yeah, I'd like to see it too. So we got that speedrun.com page up, and one day I'm going to check it and see a 10-minute time on there and cry myself to sleep. That's coming in the near future.
So I mean, we kind of jumped ahead because I had a question about like the levels having multiple solutions and like you sort of like rewarding experimentation without like hand holding. And also, yeah, the physics-based objects and environmental hazards contribute to like the challenge for sure. What about this hat system? I was expecting you to jump on and have like a wall of hats behind you, like some like big hat guy or something.
I'm really not. I thought about wearing a hat too. My hair's all messed up. No, I'm kidding. Sorry, I go on tangents. I'm easily distracted.
I love tangents.
Yeah. The hat system in the game, for anybody that doesn't know, there are 12 hats in the game that you can find and collect. And I keep saying we, it's just me, solo development. I say we because I developed a lot of this on Twitch, right? I don't have multiple personalities or anything. It's just, I did this with a lot of people watching. So if you catch me saying we, that's why. When I made the hat system, I played around with this idea of it like adding abilities, which was really cool. But for one, that's actually really hard. And two, some of the speedrunners that I had playtest early and often, said that they didn't like that idea because it's going to change up the whole mechanic and it's going to ruin runs. They're going to have different categories. They didn't like it at all. Yeah. So because it was difficulty and my playtesters didn't necessarily like it, I dropped the feature, right? I don't want to work extra hard to make something people might not like. So tabled that one. But I did want to add some sort of exploration reward in the game. So not only are there 12 hats that you can collect, many of which are just on the ground level that you can find, right? There are tons of Easter eggs in my game. References to Elden Ring, Earthbound, there's riddles, there's hexadecimal codes. I can't say too much because I don't want to give it all away, but there are tons of Easter eggs in the game. So I wanted to basically, if somebody tries to turn this corner and find this thing and go down here, I don't want nothing to be there. I want a little bit of acknowledgement, like, oh, we got a little explorer here. Let's give him something, and if you put hats on a crab, it's hilarious. So
it is, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the first time, I think the first hat that I put on was the cowboy hat. And I was like, this is awesome. This is awesome. My favorite hat in the game, it's tough. Because I love the wizard hat and you can get it without climbing. But the Pope hat, which is at the very end, just looks so funny. So it's between the wizard hat and the Pope hat for me.
As you're like naming them off, I was like, oh, that's going to be my favorite. But then it's like, oh, Pope hat. Yeah, I don't know what could top that.
Well, you just got to climb to the top and find them all. They're some of them are easy to find. Some of them I have not seen anybody find. And I'll tell you this. I am, as an indie game dev, I am addicted to watching people play my game. Addicted. I can do it for hours. There's something so cathartic about like building something and then watching somebody do the thing you intended. It warms a piece of my soul. And then there's something so crazy about watching things not go the way you intended. One of the beta testers that I had, I've spent thousands of hours testing this game. I have never gotten stuck in one of the meshes. He did it in 5 minutes. Not even trying.
Of course.
Just jumping around. got stuck in a mesh. I spent thousands of hours playing this game. Never happened. Cool. Now I got to fix that. Thanks.
That's great. I think this also ties into sort of what you were saying before, where it's like you have to make your game unique. I think that's true, but I also am one of those, like, I'm just a woman for the people. Like, I just love seeing people make stuff that like makes them happy. And it's like, that's fine if your happy thing is like making a clone of another game. Like, just make your game. That being said, it does tie into sort of like, if you want a game that people will want to play, then you know, it's like if you're not doing it as just an art form, but you're trying to appeal to like an audience, or maybe get like a large group of people willing to like test it and play it in general, I think then, yeah, you definitely have to have something that hooks them in. I don't know why I started thinking of that while you were talking.
Well, on
that,
I mean, I agree with you in that front. And I believe there is a Venn diagram for everybody, because every person you ever meet has a story to tell, right? And if they tell it through music or through writing or through making games, they can take any piece of their life that they don't think is fascinating and tell it beautifully through whatever media they want to. So when it comes to making games, even if you really have a game that you really want to make and you think it's been done 1,000 times, there is a piece of yourself that you can put into that game to make it beautiful and unique, for sure. So I agree with you in a way, in a weird, twisted Venn diagram way. We're on the same page.
I am curious about like your technical experience. So you said you did it all in Blueprints. So I'm guessing it was done in Unreal, right?
It was, yeah.
Was there a particular reason that you went with that one over like one of the other engines that are available?
It was the most accessible. I had toyed with it a little bit before. And I knew going in that I wasn't going to hard code a game because I had tried coding before. Some people's brains can do it. I don't know. Coders don't understand this, and I will forever fight a coder on this logic. Some people's brains can read code and understand it like another language and type it. My brain is not one of those brains. It just looks at a wall of text and says, this is like the Matrix, right? There's a code flying by, and I am not Neo. I do not know what it says. So I toyed with Unreal a little bit before. I knew it was powerful, but I also knew there were a lot of tutorials and resources for Unreal. Unity and Godot and the other engines do have it as well, but Unreal just really kind of stood out as the powerhouse in that front. I keep going to the fact that like I am your favorite game dev's least favorite game dev. I will say that I went into Scuttle Up with zero experience and never made a single game before at all. No coding experience, no game dev experience, no 3D animation, nothing like that. And part of what even allowed me to finish this game was I had a very clear North Star. Yeah. I want to make a game. I want to make it simple. I want to make it in a year, right? There's very important constraints to put on yourself when you're making a game, even if you are super experienced or not. Your first game will not be your dream game. It will never be. Even if you have all the time and all the money in the world to make a game, your first game has a lack of experience in it, so much so to where by the time you finish it, it will not be what you envisioned. If I were to go back right now and restart Scuttle Up, the project that came out of it because of the experience I gained would be almost a whole nother game. There are fundamental design pieces that I can't go back and change now, right? Because this is a year of effort just stacked and stacked and stacked and stacked on top of itself. But it's important for people to know that if you have a dream game and you've never made a dream game before, I highly recommend that you make Pong first.
Right.
You make something super simple and with the scope you can set and hard set a task to. And I'm a firm believer in the timeline too, because if I didn't set that, I'd still be working on Scuttle Up right now. When you're making a game, you can add this feature, you can add that feature. There are 300 Easter eggs in my brain that I would love to have in the game right now, but I just didn't because I ran out of time. So I had to come to terms with myself and that time limit and said, this is important. got to finish it by this time. That's when we're set. So yeah, your first game will never be your dream game. And if you are going into a project saying, this is going to take me 3 years, but I'm making an MMO. No, it's not. It's going to be a 7-year-old project file
Yeah.
collecting dust on the corner of your PC. Right?
Yeah. There's a reason a lot of like MMO isn't a popular genre for indie devs to do. That's not
For
easy. But
any
that being
dev,
said,
even
yeah,
for
yeah,
AAA
even
devs.
any, yeah. That being said, I think you're absolutely right. Like set that goal and then try and stick to it, because this is where like creating a game can be like an art form where it's like they say art's never finished, right? You can always do something different to it. And it's the same with games. Like when you have fun developing, you think of all these things. You're like, oh, let me see if I can implement this and make this happen, or like, whatever it may be. And that's great for like experimentation. But you're right. Like you have to set up walls and say, no, I'm going to get this game done. Like,
Mhm.
Even I'm still bad about that. I have a game that like I've been working on for technically years because it's just like something I just add to randomly. But it's a lot of people have games like I do where it's like that'll probably never be released because I just keep tweaking it.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I don't want to try and crush anybody's dreams, right? There's somebody listening right now that says, hey, I have a 7-year-old project file collecting dust in the corner of
Right.
my PC. How dare he? No, that's not it. But for me, I find it really important to try and identify your goals before you start. And some people enjoy the process of making a game more than trying to finish a game, right?
Right.
They really enjoy the process of coding or making this piece of art, or maybe just deving and testing certain mechanics and plugins. But when that is your Northern Star, you can do that infinitely. On any project, it doesn't matter whatever you're into, you can dive into one component of hundreds available when it comes to game dev and do it until you end up in the grave, right?
Right.
So if your goal is to make and release a game, then you should definitely have a very clear Northern Star that you can follow. I want to make this for this type of gamer or audience, whatever the goal is, in this amount of time. And if you stay by that, you can make a game start to finish. And part of the reason why I think that is important is because you will, if you're like me and you're learning how to make games and you've never made one before, you will learn 10 times faster trying to make a game start to finish than you will chipping away at a project, right? When I started working on my prototype for the Dying Wilds, the zombie MMO, right, that I just wanted a vertical slice of, I spent like weeks chipping away at the environment design and how to get the right auto landscape material and how to get the mountains just right and get the layout just right. I could have done that indefinitely, right?
Right.
Because there was no target at the end. Environment design is its own job in the game world.
Yeah.
I would have never stopped if I would have gotten really into that, right? And every single asset and aspect, environment design, level design, game mechanics, character design, animation, 3D modeling, audio design, UI, UX. Each one of these is an infinite rabbit hole. So
Right.
if you make the goal to make a game start to finish, you are forced to learn these other things. I didn't do any UI work or audio work in my Dying Wilds project. I had to do it in
Right.
Scuttle Up, right? I didn't even package the Dying Wilds because I never play tested it because I never got that far. I had to learn how to package a game and get my redistributables and get the EXE out to people. And that was painful, but I
Yeah.
learned 10 times faster having to do something versus wanting to do something. If you just go want, you will dig forever. If you have to do something because you set that goal, you will learn 10 times faster.
And there are people who are more inclined to learn things when they have that actual goal of it's like, you know what, I don't know how to code, but let me just work on a game and learn as I need, which is totally a valid way to learn versus like, I'm going to go through these 800 courses and then finally say I can start working on my game. So yeah.
I'm a firm believer in done is better than perfect. Right?
Yes.
And a lot of people are perfectionists. I got to learn how to perfect C++ before I even open my project file. I mean, for some people it works. For most people, they never start. Done is better than perfect, in my opinion. Dive in that pool. Dive in that pool. Make something you don't care about, because then you won't care about perfect. And then by the time you're done with it, you'll be so tired of it, and you'll love it, but you're tired of it and you want it done. That's basically what Scuttle Up is. I love that game. But man, by the end of it, I'm just done. I'm so done. Can you just get this out the door? Stop asking me for input binding. I can't do it. I'm not smart enough. Like,
Yeah.
please, just get this out the door.
Yeah, actually, I was one of those people who, when I started my first game for Unity, I was like, I have to know all there is about Unity and all about C#. And it's like, no, it was like preventing me from doing anything. It's like, just jump in there and start it. Definitely.
Very common thing, for sure.
Yeah.
Especially for perfectionist types. And I only say that because that was me, right? And all the other endeavors that I've taken on. So I had to learn. I was like, I got to learn how to like get this out, like finish it.
And one of the things that I think a lot of people, not just indie devs, but like players forget too, it's like, if you find a bug in an indie game, how many AAA titles have been released and like have a frick ton of bugs, right? Like it's there's never perfect. It'll never be perfect. There's always bugs, but all people can do is like start working on them, right? And like work to fix them. But obviously, like, give some grace to indie devs, because it's not.
Yeah. It's by far the hardest thing I've ever done. Right. I've never worked on a project in my music or my photography, or I'm like a serial hobbyist, right? I try all these different things for years. I never worked on anything for a year long. Right. And nothing was as hard as game dev. Not the streaming, not learning guitar or, anything like that. And so, yeah, I have a newfound respect for game developers. Like, I can't play the games same anymore. Like, I saw a game trailer. I'm like, oh, look at the way they did this environment design. It's really clever. Yeah. Like, look at the way the light just shines through the trees. Or like, somebody will pick something up in a game and they'll like, oh, it didn't pick up the first try. I'll yell at my friend, like, you know how hard it is to code that system, to pick that up just right and make your hand touch it? It's insane. It's insane how complicated it is. That being said, I'll give some marketing insight towards the release of Scuttle Up. I thought I took off. I took time. I just made sure I was free. I thought when the game launched, I was going to be inundated with bug reports and like a bunch of reviews saying this is wrong, that is wrong. Shout out to Epic Games and Unreal Engine. None. Nice. I got the occasional I'm stuck here. Like, okay, I'll work on a little bit of, mesh design to make sure you don't get stuck there again. But really, none. I know that the game hasn't shot off in popularity, but I think we're at like 22 reviews on Steam right now. That's not nothing.
I think it was at like 25 when I was.
That's enough because reviews are about like 10%, standard for the sales of the game. That's enough to have problems. I thought it was going to have a ton of problems. No. So whenever people bother you, like, your code's got to be super organized and you want to make sure everything's perfect. I did it all on blueprints, didn't get a single complaint.
Well, you also spent time. Like, I think that's also another big thing where it's like, if you're actually dedicated to it, and I guess not just trying to make a game just to make a game, but also like you have actual like kind of heart into it, I think you can tell, because then things are done properly. And it's not easy to make a game that isn't inundated with like bug fixes or like bug tickets.
This will be interesting perspective, because I know there are bugs and I launched with you, but they were bugs that I knew that people weren't going to find, really, because I play tested early and often. Your end user does not care about how your game is made. They don't. If I posted my game on Reddit, there's going to be 15 comments saying this is a cheap asset flip. You didn't do any work, yada, yada, whatever. Game devs, armchair game devs, no problem. I don't care about that. It won't bother me. Not a single playtester or commenter has said anything about using assets, right? Because mechanically speaking, I could replace every asset in the game with the square and the game would still play the same. So not a problem. Your end user doesn't care if they're jumping on something you handcrafted in Blender for 17 hours or something you bought off a Kit Bash. They do not care. So it's a very important takeaway to think like your end user does and play test. That being said, I watched a lot of people play test my games, and I know a lot of them can't find a hat that's on the ground, like easily accessible. I'd try and tell them where to go, and they're like, I can't find it. Okay, so I know you're not going to find this bug. There is a hotkey in the game just for testers and speedrunners to reset to the bottom that most people don't know about, because I took it out of the options menu because I knew it was bugged. Where if you press it, you can no longer go and pick up hats. It doesn't work. You have to restart your run. Launched with the bug. The simple solution, or the hard solution, would have been to spend days trying to fix this with my non-coder brain to see how I could fix the problem. The simple solution was to remove the hotkey option, or the hotkey explanation from the key binding list, so nobody knew about it. And then people who really care and find out about it will look it up and figure, oh yeah, there is a reset. Got it. So it's kind of like judging those priorities. Think like the play tester, think like the end user, what really matters to them and what are they going to care about. So surprisingly low complaints for now. I'm probably the first time I patch it, the whole game will explode and won't work properly. But until then, we'll appreciate what's going on.
Yeah, I hope not. But I think that, it's true. Even in like the professional field, like when we were going through bug tickets, there were times where it was like, all right, we got to shove these tickets that like no one's going to find like to the back, and we'll get to them when we get to them. We got to prioritize the actual real ones. And it's like, it makes sense. Again, if that one thing is stopping you from releasing your game, just ship it. Like, especially if it's something that you don't think people will find.
It is surprising, because I think a lot of times, especially maybe in the AAA space, I think a lot of times the reason these games ship with so many bugs is because people over-engineer things, and that causes bugs. Not to hate on anybody's code, but if you have a very complex system for setting the settings in your game, and you're not a coder, but you decided to hand code how to set resolution settings, motion blur, bloom, and you took days and days to make it, the more you make it, the more room for error you have.
Yeah.
I bought a $25 plugin off Fab from somebody who has 5 stars. This has been coded, tested, and it's got support documentation, and it did more than I ever could.
Right.
So like, it's about priorities. Like, I am not a purist. I do not care that somebody else made this, because I'm not in love with the process of coding things. I'm in love with watching people play something I made. So not to say any one is better than the other, but a lot of people really should look at, like, what's my end goal here? Do I want to chip away at a project because I love coding, or do I want to ship something because I want somebody to play it? And, if the second answer is yours, there is no shame in using assets other people have made. Trust me, your end users will not care.
You don't have to reinvent the wheel if it's already like there and available for you.
It's been invented by so many smarter people than me.
Right. The thing is,
so many times.
My only hesitation with plugins is it's like, ooh, it works now, but is it going to work after the next release? But if you're working on a game like this, where it's like, no, I'm shipping within the next year, then it's like, okay, then I would maybe be less worried about a plugin and it's still being supported with like future updates of like the engine and stuff, because it's not likely to explode. Yeah.
That's a great point. One of my prerequisites for anything I put in an evergreen project, something that has to last forever, right, is amazing support, right? And so, for example, Scuttle Up uses a program called Ultra Dynamic Sky. It is a beautiful plugin for a sky and weather system that integrates into Unreal Engine. And one of my prerequisites is it has to have fantastic support, and UDS does. Shout out to the creator of UDS, because I had some niche things that I kind of needed to like make sure they work. Hopped in the Discord. He's responsive. He's quick. He knows how to upgrade stuff. Like, that is one of my prerequisites. I've worked with plugins before where I've checked them. I'm like, it has some documentation, but it's clear that this person is trying to make a buck. Like, I'm not going to be supported for this 2 years down the road. So be careful with that. Make sure you've got good reviews, good documentation, and somebody to run to if it ultimately blows up and you need the project. Yeah, for sure.
So physics-based movement is notoriously hard to get right. Like, what lessons did you learn about like tuning or refining the janky but fun mechanics?
I think I got like very lost in playtesting that part myself very early on because I was just in like flow state. I had a bunch of gray boxes that I had set up with different ideas of like how I wanted to move between those spaces. And I would play an editor, move, that didn't feel right. Tune, tune, tune. Play an editor, move, that didn't feel right. Tune, tune, tune. And I blacked out for most of that period. I just know I did it for like a week. Right.
Yeah.
And I just did it for like a week, and I got to the point to where I'm like, okay, this feels natural enough to me where I feel like I'm not being violated against the inputs I'm making. Like I'm not battling the game's mechanics. If I'm trying to do something that's in my head, it goes to my keyboard and mouse or my controller, it happens on screen as intended, right? I took a long time doing that. And I can see why a lot of these rage games don't even bother, right? Or they make that the primary rage mechanic because you are going to upset people if they think of something in their head and they go to do it in their input and it doesn't happen. That's the number one way to fail, unless it's intended, like QWOP, a game like that. But if it's not the intended design, you are in a bad place. And again, that comes back to play test early and often, because you don't just want to do it for you. You want to do it for other people. And if you can, play test with accessibility in mind, right? Not everybody is going to be like you or community. Some people play an Xbox controller. Some people play on PlayStation. Some people have special controllers that they use, keyboard and mice, sensitive mice, unsensitive mice. Play test early and often and make sure you can adapt for that.
Yeah, that's smart. I do think I'm going to stress this again. Like, I can tell you spent a lot of time getting the like base physics and like movement stuff right, because my first thought when I hear about a rage bait game like this is like, oh, people are going to get stuck and the first thing they're going to do is like complain about how it's not set up well. But I wasn't seeing that at all. And I'm sure eventually, as more people are playing it, people are going to, just because that's the nature of games in general. But I think you've done that really well. From what I can see.
What's even more so, in my opinion, comes down to how you design the levels of the game, especially in a game like Afodian, because the rage can really come from that. And I learned this in early playtesting. So in the early playtesting of the game, the levels were very unforgiving. And what I learned from that is, even though the idea is to have a good streamer content based game and people can get upset and they can fall in this whole, cinematic experience when they do that, a rage experience, clippable experience, you can't completely disacknowledge the player. And like having a rage game where you don't have some sort of safety net set up is like playing Elden Ring, but you can't go get your souls, right? That would be horrific. Nobody would play it if you couldn't at least go back and try again. So I learned that very early on in the playtesting, and I don't attribute much, good work to myself. I still have imposter syndrome. I still don't tell people I'm a game dev, even though I have a fully released and purchased title on
You're
Steam.
A game dev.
Right? Yeah, I still have trouble saying it. But if I do want to pat myself on the back for anything, it was the design cues I took when keeping that in mind. So in Scuttle Up, the early level designs and the paths up allow you to take like different mechanical steps depending on what you like. So if you like having a nice net and you just want to precision speed forward without falling off, that's a play style. There is an area for that. If you like precision landing and you're not about the speed, you're about gauging that apex correctly, there's a style for that. If you mainly just like going up, but you're battling the environment, there is a start style for that. So all this was taken into consideration. It's all by design. Then you'll get into different areas that the layout of which will have like these long tunnels that are designed to make you speed up, and then you do it really fast, and then you hit a wall. And that wall is your consequence. Like, you better slow down, right?
Yeah.
And then you You go from full speed, you're sprinting, and then now you have to precision again. Oh, okay, I'm learning my lesson now. When I fall from there, okay, I sped up because they're thinking this subconsciously. Nobody's thinking this out loud. But I went through this super fast and then I fell. Oh, I have to like think here, right? But when you do that, you have to install nets. You have to kind of reward them. Like you got to this area and now you can do this new area or this new type of thing without completely having to restart. And you'll see that a lot in Scuttle Up. You'll progress to an area, and if you fall all the way to the bottom. But if you get past this sort of subconscious checkpoint, you'll have a huge net underneath you to learn again. And then you'll get to a more dangerous area where you have to use all that knowledge. And if you fail, you fall all the way to the bottom. But if you get past it, you get to another, again, subconscious checkpoint. You have a floor. You can literally go through this whole area with a floor. It's a blessing. People have told me live on stream while they're playtesting, they're like, oh my God, this is my favorite level. I'm like, yeah, because you can fall now with zero consequence. But this is good. Don't get used to it because you're about to go up there and try again. So all that was intentionally by design in Scuttle Up. And I always make the joke, good guy game dev, put this here for you. After you go through what I believe to be the hardest part of the game, which is the halfway point. It is the only part that tries to trick you. It is the only part that is like really mechanically difficult. After you reach that, it is very hard to fall all the way back to the bottom. You really have to kind of thread the needle to fall all the way back to the bottom. So it's kind of that player reward. After you hit that halfway point, it's like a designed checkpoint, not an actual checkpoint where you can restart, but like a level design checkpoint.
I love hearing people talk about like the design thought whenever they really like think about stuff. That's one of the reasons I started this channel, because I just love hearing like all of everyone's sort of like design like philosophies and stuff. So yeah,
that's why I watch every episode. I want to hear them. I'm like, what was your design intent?
Yeah. But I think from hearing you talk about it, I can say, and I know imposter syndrome never goes away, but you're definitely a game dev.
Thank you.
You have a lot of thought behind the stuff that you do, which is always nice to see. So I was looking at your Steam page, and one of the things it said was, if you can't make it very far, it's a skill issue. Try getting good, which is hilarious. How does this translate like during playtest?
Yeah. Again, back to the theme of the game being seriously unserious, right? You want to try and carry that theme, whatever your theme is for your game, the mood, the idea, all the way through from your game development to your marketing to your play testing, right?
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that we carried through on the Steam page. It's not like completely memeable bonkers, but it is kind of like, okay, we're making jokes. Like the trailer is an homage to anime openings, but it's the best trailer I could possibly cut. I am not a marketer, right? So the fact that it even came out that good, in my opinion,
it is
a miracle. Trailer. It's a miracle because I'm not, good at that. So it was seriously unserious. Like I am working very hard to make this crab-based anime montage, right? So to your question, it translates the same in playtesting. When I was playtesting, I'm keeping a very close eye on what do people say versus what do they do versus what made them stop. At what point did they stop and why did they stop, right? And when you're playtesting, most people will start with their friends and family, and unfortunately, your friends and family are going to be nice to you, right? Even if you tell them not to, they're not going to be like, this game sucks, right? They're going to say, at most, they're going to say, oh, well, I think the graphics are okay. When in reality, the Steam reviewer is going to say, this looks horrible, right? So you want to try and get as many new and unique playtesters as you can, and that's a challenge in and of itself. But one of the things I'm really paying attention to is where did they stop and why did they stop? And what did the playtest look like? So when I did my playtests, I didn't just hand the package off to people and ask them to report back. I said, let's do it live. I'm not going to backseat. I'm not going to tell you how to do it. I just want to sit there while it happens. And if you can, if you're so inclined to, go ahead and narrate it if you want to, right? And tell me what you're thinking if you can. Not everybody will. that was a great way to play test because I got to see in real time where people got confused and what the issue was. When I started doing it in groups, it started getting really fun because everybody was making fun of each other. And we started live streaming the play tests. There are clips out there of people just laughing and laughing so hard at people having their expectations violated by trying to do this and getting the wrong execution. So the whole skilled issue thing, skill diff thing or whatever, the very common trope in the game when we see it on stream and when we see it play tested. So I'm like, it's got to be in the description. It's even in the game, actually. One of the crabs, when you talk to them, says, if you fall, it's not your fault. And the next line is, well, actually it is, but nobody needs to know that. Right.
But also get good.
But also get good. Yeah.
I think that is, you brought up a few really good points. So like one is like getting a wide variety of players to play test, because sometimes it's nice to have people who play a lot of games play test, but then it's also important to get those people who are less gamers, right? Just to see what like they get hung up on or their first impressions. But the other thing is, watching someone play test is invaluable too, because a lot of times like something will feel wrong or like someone will get stuck somewhere, but they can't verbalize what it is. But you as the developer can see and be like, okay, I see what's going on here, you know?
There is a billboard in the game. Sorry to interrupt. There is a billboard in the game that was added in like the last few months of development because I had somebody play test and I watched him stream it and he could not get past this area at all. Like, I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, oh my Lord, this is going to ruin the game. It's going to get negative Steam reviews. Nobody's going to get past 10%. So there's an area that used to just be like one gold bar and there was a launch pad that would launch somebody away, but he couldn't figure out that the launch pad could launch him forward. Right.
Oh, no.
So the gold bar is now 3 gold bars shaped like an arrow, because there's a lot of things shaped like an arrow in Scuttle Up. Pointing, there is a visual effects kind of conveying wind blowing in that direction. And now a billboard saying read before falling. These pads can take you forward as well as up. I don't like to hand people instructions because I believe that's kind of bad design, but sometimes you have to. Sometimes you have to say, this is obvious. And there were so many times in playtesting where I thought something was going to be obvious. Like, this thing's in your way, push it over. Right. And they're like, what do I do now? I'm like, do you not remember that you can push? I told you at the start of the game, it's on the pause menu. There was a billboard there and you literally just right click. Like, I thought you would expect. Nope. They just get to it like, oh, what do I do now? So again, play test early and often, because things you think will be obvious will not be obvious. I have a bug I have to fix because I watched somebody stream it. He didn't know I was watching him. He pressed tab to get into his inventory. Right. I'm an MMO player. Tab gets you into your inventory. Tab takes you out. That's how I'm so used to it. That's my own bias, right? He presses tab to get into the inventory, presses escape to try and get out of it. Okay, fair. It should do that, but I'm not a good coder, so it didn't. It pulled up the pause menu. Okay, now he's lost. He hits resume, and he's back in his tab inventory. He hits escape again. I watch him do this for at least 45 seconds before he closes the game and moves on to another one. So my personal bias is like, how did you not know to just press tab again? When he hits the pause menu, it pulls up a list of controls on the screen that he's not reading because it says tab, inventory, open and close inventory. He's just not reading it. It's literally in your face. You will put something in your user's face and they will not read it. I wish I had a heat map, an eye tracker for how many people read the instructions, because there's so many people who are like, how do you do this? I'm like, you've hit pause 7 times. I saw you do it. It's just there. No, man, no shiny object. I saw the animated menu, so I never read the instructions. So play test early and often. Think about your end user, because they will surprise you.
And don't expect people to read. That's a big one.
Yeah. Oh, and when it comes to play testing, to your point, variety is key, right? You're never going to please everybody, right? I had plenty of, let's say, non-Fodian players, normies, whatever you want to say, people that don't like being mad all the time, I guess. Weird. I had plenty of people play the game where it was not in their wheelhouse. You can't please everybody. Not everybody's going to love your game. But when it comes to variety, a lot of people try and play test with other game devs because they're the most accessible. We go to the subreddits. Can anybody here test my game? Can anybody here test it? Don't lean on purely other game devs to test your game or to even take a look at your game or generate interest in your game. We see it all the time on r/indie dev, solo dev. People will say, here's my new game. It's on Steam now. You can wishlist it. You're talking to other game devs. That's like a plumber going to a plumbing convention, right? And saying, look at all my great plumbing services. They're all other plumbers. They can do their own plumbing, right? That doesn't mean they can't like test and help you out. They can, and networking is good, but don't market to other game devs. They are not your target audience, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with playtesting. They're going to notice stuff. They're going to notice the animation on the UI wheel when you click escape. They're going to know silly stuff like that, right? As to where your end users are going to brute force your game into ways that you've never seen before. As far as getting playtesters, I have a huge bias because I had a small streaming community before I started. So I had 20 to 30 people ready, right, to test the game, probably 10 of which I actually convinced to by the time, I was ready to do it. But, live inside the communities where your game thrives. If you're making a Souls-like, you're on all the Souls-like subreddits, you're in Souls-like Discords, you follow a lot of Souls-like streamers, or you can even, if you're so inclined, you can stream your production of the game as well. Start, streaming yourself, doing Pomodoro or whatever, working alongside people. And that way you can meet other people that might be interested in the game or other game devs so you can network. I've learned so much watching other people play games. So I do recommend it. It's not for everybody, but I do. I'm not a huge fan of devlogs though. I feel like a lot of people that religiously make devlogs because they like making YouTube videos and they want to be a YouTuber, and it distracts them from making their game.
Actually making the game.
More than anybody, making YouTube videos is hard.
It's that's a lot
of time. That's a lot of time making those devlogs. Like, how far are you sending back the production of your game? Yeah. I refuse to, and I'm a YouTube partner, and I didn't make devlogs. I'm like, what is this going to get me? I mean, maybe like a bunch of end users that like watching devlogs might, I don't know. Like it just didn't feel on target. So I'm like, I'll release a YouTube video when I'm done, if it does well, saying, here's how I made a successful indie game in a year. Or I'll just link to this and that'll be the whole video. Go watch Pixel Breakdown's video on it.
Although I think streaming it is nice because you don't have to worry about like editing and doing all this stuff. You just get to stream you doing it. And then that probably adds some accountability too, because you can't be like, oh, I'm working on this, and then be like, no, I'm not working on it a week from now, and people are going to be like, wait, what the hell? Like, you know.
And you will be less productive while streaming, or at least I was. I did probably 10 to 15% of my game live on stream, just to kind of get those updates. You can watch me make a little bit of it. You can have a little funny suggestions, right? Most people will be less productive, but just being involved in that software and game development community on Twitch and in other places, it'll make you feel like you're not alone in your endeavors, and you'll see other people have same problems. And inversely, if you're new like me, it will make you feel tiny and dumb. I have so many people that I watch, and I ask like, oh, I'm working on this. I'm having a lot of trouble with it. And they just full hacker mode can like do it and make a version of it. And I'm just like, I feel so dumb right now. You just get out of your mind. Am I old? Am I senile? Just subtract that. Everybody's got their own specialties, because those same people that did that came around and played my game. These people I look up to as artists, they play my game like, oh, this thing's amazing. Like they're not even like sugarcoating it. They're like, I see them putting in the hours on Steam and buying it and promoting it, and I didn't even ask them to. So I'm like, okay, got to subtract that imposter syndrome and that dumb feeling. We're all doing our own thing.
I do think that the communities are really helpful. Even when I'm browsing Reddit, if I see like a random bug that someone resolved in some weird way, I'll save that post just because I'm like, I don't know, I might need this like a year or two from now. Like it's like there's so much good information, and you see people knocking down like bugs that you didn't even think were possible, before you even get to them. And then it is a place where you can also like be like, hey, I need help with this. And usually people will help. Sometimes you post at a wrong time and people are like, well, hey, dummy, like.
I have an unspoken animosity with a lot of people in the coding community. I love coders. Coders build games. They're great people to have just for foresight. But sometimes coders don't have the empathy to understand that they know a language you don't. So I'll ask a question in like a Unreal Discord or on Reddit and like, hey, I'm having a problem with this. And the answer is more along the lines of like, well, you just have to do that. You just have to do B. You know, if you have a problem with A. I'm like, sir, madam, if I was smart enough to understand why I had this problem, I
Yeah,
wouldn't
yeah.
be like asking this question. Like, clearly I have a fundamental problem with coding. Don't answer it like I have the same experience you do. I
Right.
cannot tell you how many times that has happened to me trying to learn. It was a very painful learning experience. And that's mostly my fault for having a smooth brain. But it's I would go in and like Unreal, like I'm having this packaging issue, and they'd be like, it says right there what your problem is. I'm like, no, I read the thing that
Yeah.
the takeaway is here. I don't understand what it says.
Yes, yeah.
Please help me. And then sometimes you get some really helpful people who understand, and then sometimes you don't. It's a journey for sure. But there are people out there that can and will help you.
Yeah, yeah, they will. They'll come flying in like the angel descending to you and
Mhm,
really helpful and like even be like, "Oh, you can reach out to me if you have more, issues like
mhm.
this."
Yeah,
That
don't
being
let the
said,
jaded people bring you down because
yeah,
they will try.
exactly.
They will try.
No, exactly. And a lot of them, sometimes people just go on there just to be mean. Like it's like you don't
Yeah.
even code. You're just I don't even think you're a code.
I
Like you're just
call them
here to be
I
mean.
call them armchair game devs, and that's my
Yeah.
running joke. They tried to make a game once in RPG Maker, and now they're in all the subreddits yelling at people for no reason.
Yeah,
I one of my
exactly.
most recent posts, I think I had the audacity to say, also, I will not be accepting any criticism from somebody who hasn't published a game on Steam. Like I had the audacity to say that just to filter out
Just to be clear.
yeah,
Yeah.
just to be clear, this is a complex issue. If you haven't published a game on Steam, please don't reply. And people still did. My
Of
reply
course.
was, "Oh, neat. How did you solve this in your game?" And then
Yeah.
nothing,
Yeah,
no
exactly.
response. Okay, all right, I get it. Dude. I know that's
Um,
a bit jerkish of me to say, but I enjoyed it. So
no, sometimes it's nice to be upfront and be like, "Look." um, but yeah, no, the last game I was working on when I was still working with a big studio, we were watching a playtester one day. Like we got to watch them in the room, and he was like, "Oh, I jumped on this thing and it didn't let me do this like I was expecting." And I wrote in the chat, I was like, "Tell him get good, tell him get good." And it's funny because like someone from design like took a screenshot of that, and for a while that was a meme where like anytime anyone said
that's
anything bad,
hilarious.
they would post it. But so reading your thing on Steam, it was like that really spoke to me, like personally, like it's
Well,
a
it's a part
skill
of our
issue. Get
gaming
good.
culture, right? It's part of our culture. It's like you gotta, rough each other up a little bit, especially
Yeah,
if you're a
yeah.
multiplayer fan. And I know not everybody's like that, but most of us gamers, who grew up with the rough and tough and siblings beating them up and telling them to get
Yes.
good, or COD lobbies yelling at the most atrocious things you ever heard at them. It's that sort of like toughness we kind of wear, on our sleeves and be like, yeah, I grew up in these streets. Like you can't hurt me.
Yeah. Although I am curious, like speaking on this, um, because this ties into like the game being a like sort of rage bait type game. Was there an issue while you were developing where at first you were like, "Oh, get good, scrub." Like if they were like this is hard, and then you looked back and you're like, "Oh, actually, no, wait, I do need to resolve this or fix this."
Um, I would definitely say my inherent personality would be very vulnerable to, oh, just get good, no problem. But my imposter syndrome kept me in check. So if somebody
Right.
couldn't find something, I said, this is my fault, not yours, right?
Yeah.
I failed as a designer. That's what I would say. I was like, I failed as a designer. This is my fault. I need to do research on how to communicate this more effectively. So luckily, my lack of ego kept me in check on that. As much as I would like to say you can't get past this, it's your fault. No, I would be like, okay, I get that this is hard. I'm going to build an alternate route just in case no one can figure it out, right? Or I'm going to put in these clues just in case no one could figure it out. And that's when the playtesting early and often really came into play.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that one of the first sections of the game is a smoke section where you get up and the player's kind of confused. This comes back to that, make the player learn, help them solve puzzles. you go into it and you're on these platforms and there's a smoke screen around the platform. And you have to leap of faith yourself to the next smoke screened platform, and you have to do it 6 times. That originally was the only way up. And if you got there and you couldn't do it, too bad. That's when the inspiration for making alternate paths happened, because people that were playtesting were like, yeah, make it harder, make it harder. And then I made them playtest it after they watched me make it. And they said, I can't get past this. I quit. Right. So it wasn't like skill issue, right? I can do it. You should be able to do it. It was like, okay, let me put, a little patch of smoke here, a little visual indicator, tell you which direction to go. And if you find that out, you're going to be like, oh, I'm a genius. I figured out the smoke that's coming up tells me where to go. Boom, reward system. If you absolutely cannot get past it, the next time you get up there, you're going to look around and say, oh, there's these little really attractive light up pads that are running the direction I need to go. Oh, visually, I got to make them stand out because they weren't the obvious one. So if you find those, oh, I'm a genius. I found another way around. Okay. So if you do something really hard, you have to give them a way out that makes them feel smart for getting around it. Right.
Yeah.
So it was never like, oh, just get good. It's, oh, you're not good enough. Well, you can be. Everybody can be good enough. You just got to find the right way, and you'll feel good. You'll feel good when you do it.
Yeah. Okay. I think this feels like a legit game. When I first saw like rage bait games, and I think it was like the Bennett Foddy, I was like, oh wait, like it does look like someone had issues making the game but released it and was like, fuck, and then it was like, oh, but it seems like there's a bit more to it, right? Like and there's a reason that it became popular, and then created its own like subgenre. But I do like, I'm more of like, if I'm going to play a rage game, it's going to be more like yours, where it's more like it's the like design and level stuff that's going to be the rage thing. It's not the control. I'm one of those people who, like, controls will make me mad.
Yeah. And I told you earlier, I'm a big believer in like case studies, right? And like figuring out what worked and what didn't work in other games. So the most recent Fodian that had come out next to mine is a game called Get to Work. And it was hugely promoted through Atrioc. I think it's Isto was the name of the publisher that made it. So when that game comes out, I'm like, oh, this is now my case reference. Like, what did it take to make it? What did people like about it? What people not like about it? And it immediately alleviated some of my imposter syndrome, because it was a successful game. But when you watch it, there's nothing about it that says, oh, this is game of the year, right? No offense, Isto, anybody watching. It's a great game. But, it's not renowned in its circles, which is fine. That doesn't mark it not as a good game, but it became a case study for me. Okay, what did it take to make this game? The game Get to Work, according to the devlogs, had a 4-man team. The primary developer had 10 years of experience, albeit in 2D games, but 10 years of game development experience, right? And coding experience. Worked for a huge corporation. And they had $100,000 budget to make this game, right? Scuttle Up had a 1-man team, almost negative experience, and a $0 budget. Okay. So I have one review on my Steam page that says this game's better than Get to Work. And I will frame that and put it on my wall, because if it's true or not, I don't care, but it made me feel good because another game had a 4-man team, 10 years of experience, $100,000 budget. And I made one person go, oh, I like this one better. That's not to pad my own ego, but it's just to say, like, you have to weigh the importance of the things that you're putting into your game. And one of mine was just these environmental design cues that I'm putting in. That's one of the things that Get to Work lacks, is it doesn't have much environment design. They made it in a year, just like I did, but they didn't use any additional assets. So all of Reddit will applaud and say their game's 10 times better than mine, but they didn't use any additional assets. So the environment design ends up being a little bland, right? It doesn't really complement. It has amazing things in it. It has voiceover, it has really interesting mechanics, it has really funny and rage moments, and there are things about it that are significantly better than Scuttle Up. But because I drilled into environment design so much and it's something that I loved and it made that part just a little bit better, I believe it helped me get to that one Steam review saying the game's better than get to work. But take pride in things like that. You know, if there are things that you really like I started making a game and I really liked making the environment. Like I set a goal for a year, but like take pride in that environment, make it a part of your game, make it a part of what makes it beautiful, right? Make it a part of what really conveys it to people. For me, it was level design. So I went all in on level design and spatial communication for that reason.
Yeah, that's great. I think I've noticed games you have to kind of excel at one or the other, where it's like it either has to be a really well like playing game as far as like the technical stuff into it and like the design of the game and stuff, or you can have like really, really great art. And then you do have ones where it'll be both, but like there's times where it's like one or the other is just like a really big point of it. And it's like some of the games that don't play as well that have really great art do still make it big because people like seeing pretty art. And then other games that have like really great like technical stuff, people like playing things that play well. So yeah. But actually I really like the visuals of your game.
That was a surprising compliment on that, and I can't take credit for any of it. I'll link you guys towards all of the art assets that I use and all that good stuff. The only thing I can take credit for is the design of the visuals. Like if I chose to take a brick pyramid and make it a black abyss and add lasers to it, I can take credit for those choices, and that's pretty much it. So, and those things are things I do like. I really love the mushroom forest in my game, and hopefully if you guys aren't bad enough at the game, you can make it up there. It's beautiful.
Nice. But no, yeah, I think the whole styling of it is nice. And yeah. So I have some more like just general questions about game dev in general. Is there any advice you would give to aspiring devs who want to develop a game like this?
Absolutely. So, as many resources as there are out there for game developers, it seems like a lot, but it's really not, right? When I took on this journey, I thought that I was going to have ChatGPT write my whole game for me if it wanted to, and endless amounts of tutorials. But what ends up happening is game development is so specific that when you start to really dig into the niche issues that you're going to have, it can't really be solved by a tutorial because it's specific to your project, right? And you can try and get some like general information, but you are going to have to do some problem solving, right? Don't let that stop you. Don't let it slow you down. You can get past it. And I know that because I got past it and I have 2 brain cells fighting for 3rd place, right? I am terrible when it comes to trying to learn new things and get those things in order and get systems to work. I could barely make the timer for my game. It was a struggle. I needed help from people to get, but it happened, right? Just because of the sheer persistence that I had. So the person who makes a successful game isn't going to be the best coder. It is going to be the most persistent person, right? That's going to come out on top. There are people out there that are amazing coders who will never publish a title because they just like coding more than they are aiming at releasing a game. So be persistent and be on top of your goals and focus on delivering something you care about. And then the other part would be back to our original point as far as advice for new and solo devs is your first game will not be your dream game. I cannot iterate that enough. Your first game will not and should not be your dream game, right? If you have a dream game you want to make and you still have stuff that you need to learn, you've never worked for AAA studio, you've never published a game before, you are going to want to get all those kinks out, all those problems out, all those things you don't know out on I hate to say throwaway game, but almost a throwaway game that's going to be your learner game, right? It's going to be your middle school girlfriend before you know how to treat people and be a good person, right? Or whatever it is. It's going to be that first, okay, I got you. Thank you for training me, said game. Now I'm going to go work on my dream game. because you will come out the other side of that project, even if it's just a 6-month Pong experience, like Pong with cats and there's a ball in the middle. Great. You think that game's going to take you 3 weeks? It's going to take you 6 months. And you're going to be $1,000 over budget, right? Your first game will not be your dream game. So make a first game where you can easily say, okay, done's better than perfect. I can leave this out. I'm just throwing this away. You will learn 10 times faster doing that. And you will come out the other side more ready than ever to start working on something that you really care about.
That's great advice. You do, as you're learning too, like you were saying, you're having issues with like the timer or stuff. It's like, but then once you learn how to get over it, that's like kind of something in your tool belt that you'll have a better idea of how to handle, like, yeah, in your next game. And then you won't be as scared to maybe like branch even out further for that.
If you're smart, I'm not even sure if I can go and redo it. I'm scared to have to go back and redo something. I'm like, oh, I'm not even sure if I can go back and pull that off again. It's sticks and glue holding it together as it is.
No, there's plenty of stuff that I've done where I don't know, I've added something to the game and then people will come like months later and be like, hey, I have a question on this. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to need a day to look back at that.
Yeah.
Like, I have no idea even how that was happened.
Well, you start to realize stuff that's really important too, that you didn't know was important. So when I started, I had, 3 to 6 months of a vertical slice I was working on. And, I put that away and put 3 to 6 months into this crab and this motion and these levels and how I want people to move along. And then it wasn't until I got way into the project, I'm like, okay, this doesn't feel natural because there's no sound, right? And so I'm like, okay, I'll just put sound into the game. The term, okay, I'll just put sound into the game is the dumbest thing I've ever said, right? That audio engineering is an art. It's an art form. When you listen to the crab walking along the ground, it's not just play sound at location, right? It is the sound of keyboard clicking linked up to a meta sound plugin that randomizes the pitch and the volume slightly, so it's not the same sound over and over again. It has to change it like to sound more natural. And then it takes that sound and matches it up to the animation steps of the legs going, right? And it has to change based on whether or not they're running or not. It took me days to get that right? Just to make the walking sound, right? And the jumping sound is way more simple because I was tired from the walking sound. It's just a pop, right? And that one's more consistent because when the walking sound, you can make it inconsistent. If you make the jumping sound inconsistent, but it's a consistent mechanic, people are going to think something's off. Oh, what was wrong with that jump?
Right. Oh, that's a good point.
So, yeah. So there are things that you have to engineer, and then you have to attenuate the sounds or occlude them. So when you're under the water, the environmental sounds muffle. When you come out of the water, the screen gets wet and the sound comes back. Like, audio engineering is an art in and of itself that I had no interest in taking on. I did the best that I could because I wanted everybody to have a good experience. That's my North Star. I want people to enjoy the game. But, I learned fast and hard that was a very important system. And I think they're called feedback systems, right? Things that the player does and they get feedback that something happened in the game. The feedback systems in games are so wildly important. And your case study for that is Balatro. Game of the Year contender, wildly successful indie game that has sold millions on millions of dollars. And it's a poker video game, but the sounds in the game are so crispy and good. And every time a card folds, it makes that card sound and it's shuffle. It's beautiful. So you can make a hugely successful game just focusing on good feedback systems. And I know that now. And I didn't know that before I started. So if you make a game front to back, you're going to learn that. If you keep chipping away at a project, it's going to be a long time before you start worrying about audio if you didn't care about it before.
Yeah. And you're right. Audio can definitely make or break, and it takes it to that next level. And I am someone who loves the feedback of like just noises whenever I'm doing stuff. So yeah, it is satisfying.
That is another disappointing part of my shipping. There is a train in my game that does not make any audio when it flies by. And most people don't notice, but one person did. I'm like,
of course one did.
I got to patch that in. There's birds chirping at the start of the level. You didn't notice I attenuated that in there, but yeah, the train passing by. doesn't make any sound, and that level will be cooler when it does.
I mean, I
had a time frame I had to hit, so I locked myself to it, or else I'd still be working on it.
And that was nothing that should hold back a game from getting released, obviously. I just like
Especially
sounds whenever I'm doing
dev.
stuff. Yeah.
If you're a solo dev, you try and hold yourself to the highest standard that you can, but you cannot hold yourself to the standard that you see even the top indie solo devs do, let alone indie dev studios who have 4 to 10 people, let alone AA, AAA studios, right? You have to afford yourself some grace when it comes to what you ship and how you ship it. Don't be sloppy, but understand that, like, if you're coming into this with 0 experience and you deliver something that even some people like, you're way ahead of the 1%. Most people don't, right? Afford yourself some grace, do the best you can. And if you focus really hard on the things that really matter, people will like it.
Yeah, 100%. What is one thing that you hope players take away from their experience, like playing your game?
I will say that Moonside Studios is not legally liable for any broken keyboards or controllers while playing Scuttle Up. It can be rage-inducing. One of the things I really hope people take away is that there are rewards to be found in doing the hard thing. Right. This is, as an old man, right, old and gray, and my back hurts and all that stuff. I was born in the late 1900s. Right. As an old man, one of the things that I've learned going through life as a nerd and as a gamer is that it is really often so much easier for us to lock into the easier thing and get comfortable in the easier space. But nothing amazing ever happens in a comfort zone. And for my gaming friends, I know a lot of us were picked on when we were younger. We suffer from disabilities. We have trouble socializing, whatever it is. I don't want these people to feel like they can't step out of their comfort zone and try to accomplish something amazing. So if the subconscious message is get out of your comfort zone and do the hard thing to get the reward, that came through in me just making this game. I am by no means equipped to even have shipped a game. It's amazing that I'm here talking to you at all. I've been bragging to my friends about it. I shouldn't be here, but I am, because I stayed persistent on that. Nothing amazing happens in a comfort zone mentality. Do the hard thing, struggle, cry yourself to sleep, call yourself stupid, but still wake up and try again. And eventually something will come out of it that you can be proud of.
That's a beautiful message. And I think
thank you. I get one beautiful message a year. That's it. one beautiful message.
That was the one thing.
That's it. No more podcasts or interviews ever again. That's because it's not going to top
that. Now just like some short form questions, which we kind of already covered, the like what advice you would give. But if you had to like condense it down to like 30 seconds, like you had 30 seconds to tell someone like advice for making just a game in general, they're wanting to get into like the indie game dev scene, what would you say?
Yeah, if you're making a game for the first time, make the smallest possible game you can ever. Make Pong, make Snake, put your own little twist on it, make it fun, and then take what you've learned and move on to the next thing.
That's great advice.
That's the whole bit right there, right? Because like you will learn 10 times more making Pong front to back and a shippable package than you will chipping away at a large project. You will learn that some things are fun and some things are not fun. You will learn audio. You will learn UI. You will learn, front to back, what do I need to do for somebody to actually, care about this? And you'll learn those more philosophical and macro things. Like you'll be amazed how many people do not care about the game you're making. I thought, I've got a game now, and like I can give away keys, and like YouTubers are going to accept these keys with open arms, and some of them are going to want to play. You'll be amazed how many people are like ghost you, and you try and give them a free game. Right? Here's a free game. No, not even redeemed. I don't care. Right? Because as game devs, we love games and we love the process of making games. Like when I was streaming, if a game dev came into my stream, I don't care how small you are. Tell me about your project. Tell me how long it took you to make it. Tell me this, tell me that. Not everybody has that mentality, right? Yeah. So you'll be amazed how many people don't care, and you won't learn that unless you start small.
That's good advice.
Sorry to
Also,
rant on top of our soundbite there, but I had to include it in for our long form viewers.
no, I think that that's great advice. And even just once you release that first game, just knowing that you can release games, it like unlocks this whole other like I can do anything, you know? So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, for sure. Yeah, you
get
can
to
say that
that.
you did it. Yeah. Game
Uh
jams are a fun way to do that. I mean, I've never
yeah,
done one, but I have plenty of friends that have. Apparently, they're super fun to do. You can do them as teams, and it really just kind of exists for that reason. That's why they're popular because it
yeah,
forces you to keep scope in and try and make something as quickly as possible.
exactly. And some of the like what is it, like heart of the indie dev like games came from game jams. So that's
Absolutely. Yeah.
that's great. And then my last short form question is like summarize the indie game dev experience in 3 words.
3 words is tough. If I were to summarize the indie game dev in 3 words for me personally, it would be pain, definitely pain, uh, learning, and pride. And I know I have a little bit of a bias there because I crossed the finish line, the theoretical finish line by publishing a game. But pride would be the last one. Pain for sure. It depending on who you are, it might be one of the hardest things you ever do. Um,
Yeah.
learning, there's no way if you've never made a game before that you don't come out the other side a smarter or at least more educated person on one of the aspects of making a game. And then pride in the fact that the first time you watch somebody play it or you get a review from somebody that you didn't know or a random YouTuber made a video about your game, you will be addicted to watching it. And for me, I get such a sense of pride, like not in an ego sense, but in like a, oh my God, I did that. And then now it's there
Yeah.
and people are enjoying it. So pain, learning, pride.
Those are, yeah, I'll agree with those words, summarizing it. And I think it's great that you get to experience like people playing your game. Um, those were all the questions I had for you. I'm genuinely looking forward to seeing like speed runs, people streaming your game. I can definitely see just the crab in general is hilarious. So I'm expecting to see some like really funny gifs come out of it. Um, very excited and like I think when you were describing what you wanted people to experience from playing your game, like that stepping out of your comfort zone and seeing how rewarding it is, like just from the reviews alone, I can tell you people experience that. So I think you've done an amazing job, and I just can't wait to see um, like what happens with this game, but also whatever you do next. And I'll include like links for everyone to keep up to date with you and to, of course, get the game. It's on Steam. Um,
Mhm.
yeah,
Well, thank you very much. You're too kind, but I appreciate it. I deeply appreciate it. Yeah, the game is on Steam under Scuttle Up, and all the links to connect with the game in other places like the Discord or Twitter, they're all on the Steam page as well. So you can find us there. And I try and stay very active. So if you're streaming it, I will probably come by and check it out. If you make a YouTube video, I'll probably comment on it. Hopefully it blows up so much where I might miss a couple. But until then, I will stay engaged with everybody that plays the game as much as I can. So thanks.
yeah. Also, when you were saying that, like when you were playtesting it, and it was like everyone was laughing and making fun of each other, like I totally see that. That's why I think this is a great like streamable game.
Oh,
Like
yeah. By
truly,
design, by
yeah.
design for sure. There are can press K and just kill the crab, and it just ragdoll, and you can't recover. It's most people would build in the no, you can't recover. The crab is dead. It's falling right, and then when it's falling, your crab powers can put it in slow motion. So streamers
Oh
are
my
already
gosh.
queuing up music. Mad World starts playing, and it's just
Yes.
cinema of a crab in a cowboy hat ragdolling through the environment.
Yes.
Didn't even fix it because it's cinema. There's
Yeah,
an Easter egg
yeah.
down in the environment. If you fall through it, it says, if you're down here, you seriously messed up. It's by design.
Yeah.
Everything is by design to be a streamer based game because, put a part of you in the game. I was a streamer for 4 years before I did it. So yeah, we're putting it in there. We're going to, everything that I would want in a rage game as a streamer, for putting it in there. So yeah, you're 100% right there. It is by design a streamer-based game. So if you're a streamer, go play Scuttle Up. Your people will laugh. I guarantee it. Every chat I've seen has had a hilarious time watching people play it.
No, I believe that 100%. I already know some people that I want to see rage out on it that I'm going to be like, go play this game.
I'll send them a key. If you're a streamer, and as long as you're not streaming to nobody, if you got even a couple people, hit me up. I'll send you a key. Join the Discord. I'm in there. I'll get you one.
But yeah, so I mean, yeah, I appreciate it again.